Welcome to the Business Finishing School Podcast. Stop the insanity, eliminate the chaos, bring simplicity, probability, and leverage as operating values into your business and personal life so you can do more, earn more, and improve your relationships. This is Business Growth Simplified. Here's your host, Business Finishing School founder, Rick Sapio.
All right, everyone, this is Rick Sapio here live. Morgan, thank you so much for setting up yet another BFS podcast. I'm here with Gino Wickman. Gino is I'm going to say famous in quotations, a famous author who's written many, many books, and you could check out his bio online. You could also see it below. But of all the books you've written, Gino, it seems like you're spending a tremendous amount of time declaring that this latest book, The Entrepreneurial Leap, and tell me the subtitle of that book. I don't have it in front of me.
Do you have what it takes to become an entrepreneur?
And you want to spend the next 10 years manifesting this in the world. Why is this the book that you've chosen to do that with?
Yeah, it's great. So I look at it as almost like eras. And so the previous 20 years was focused on helping entrepreneurs with existing businesses build great companies. And we now have over 100,000 companies running on that system. I wrote 5 books around that concept. It's called EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And, I see that as kind of the buildup to why I'm pursuing this next 10-year passion. And what I'm doing is I'm going to the front of the entrepreneurial journey, and having seen these crazy entrepreneurs and what they do and how they act and their genetic encoding, I feel I see clearly what the definition of a true entrepreneur is. And I want to help the people that think they are. Right now, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but I really feel I can help the ones that think they are decide whether they are or aren't. And the ones that truly are, which I call the 4%, I really feel I can give them a huge jump start on becoming what they're meant to be, and that's entrepreneurs. And the last thing I would say is, it's an old saying by Daniel Kennedy that says, we teach what we needed the most. The reality is, I'm teaching my 18-year-old self who was lost, a mislabeled derelict. I didn't go to college. I knew academics weren't for me. And so, I'm teaching myself, I'm teaching that person that I was that's a little bit lost right now. And the reality is, there are people out there that are entrepreneurs and they just don't realize it yet. And so that's why I'm so passionate and excited about this next book and content and mission.
Yeah, one of the things I challenged you on when we first talked was you say the words true entrepreneur. And I almost feel like you're challenging people who don't consider themselves entrepreneurs to be entrepreneurs. So I want to talk about you yourself. How do you know that you, Gino, that you are a true entrepreneur?
No, it's such a great question, because if you asked me that at 28, I would say, I don't know. And at 29, I would say yes. So it was right around then I realized what I was. And I wish I had learned and known this sooner. That's really the point about this mission. And so, the way I know is now with 25 years under my belt of working with entrepreneurs, I start the book by talking about how to confirm whether you are. I believe there are 6 essential traits: visionary, passionate, problem solver, driven, risk taker, and responsible. And the reason I know that I am is those are all the things that I am. They've been with me forever. I couldn't articulate it or define it at 28, and I would suggest it probably took me until 40 to really get clear on it and see it in all of these wonderful entrepreneurs. So, the short answer is I possess those 6 essential traits. I was born with those 6 essential traits, and that's how I know. And then I know that certainly by, my background and what I've built and, what I've done in the world from a business standpoint. Right, wrong, or indifferent. It's not like somehow entrepreneurship is the only way to go. It's not all it's cracked up to be. Most of the time it's sheer hell. It's hard. We're crazy. But this is what, for some reason, this is the hand I was dealt, and I've maximized it and relished it and really capitalized on it.
So are you suggesting like DNA, you either have the entrepreneurial DNA or you don't?
100%. And
Wow.
in that is the fun debate that hopefully we're about to have.
Well, I think that's for another call
Yeah.
because I am on the other side of that debate. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So we'll tell everybody that there may be another call later. So let's talk about the 8 disciplines um, for increasing your success. How do you word it in the book? I can't remember.
Yeah. So the 8 disciplines for increasing your odds of success.
Yeah. So let's talk through that. I think that could be very valuable for our audience. And by the way, I told Gino he could plug anything he wants. We're so grateful for his mission in life and what that mission has manifested, all these books that you can read, which I've consumed 3 of. Um, I also know Mark. I'm here in Dallas. I've known him since he joined EO 25 years ago, I think, Mark Winters. So your co-author on Traction. Is it
Rocket,
Traction or Get a Grip? Oh,
rocket,
Rocket Fuel. I'm
rocket.
sorry. Yeah, Rocket Fuel. So let's start on the 8
Yeah.
disciplines. What's the most important one, or is it the first one?
Yeah, well, actually, they're all equally important, but you'll see how they kind of build on each other. And as we go into these 8 disciplines, I want to create a little context for your audience, because the way the book is written is it's written in 3 parts: confirm, glimpse, and path. And so they're purposely written in that order because first step, you have to confirm that you are. And again, we'll save that debate for another day. Glimpse is all about showing, once you realize you are, it's about showing all of your options and showing you a day in the life, both the dream and the nightmare. And then assuming that, motivates you to move, then we get into path, and path gets into all kind of things like college or not, how to find your passion, how to find a mentor. And one of the things is the 8 disciplines. And so diving into that, the whole idea here is I looked at my 25 years of history as an entrepreneur, the hundreds of companies I've worked with, the tens of thousands that we've worked with, and then the people I interviewed in preparation for this book. And out of that kind of bubbled to the surface these 8. And so with that, I'll take them in order and we'll move kind of briskly through them. But if I could pick my favorite, I don't think I can because it's like my 8 children, for lack of a better term. But I'll touch on each one, and then you tell me which one you want to go deep into. But the first discipline is to clarify your vision. And so many entrepreneurs, they jump and they leap and they go and they start selling stuff and they're just making up as they go along. And the reality of it is, the clearer they can be about their vision as early as possible when taking their leap, they're going to be able to help their customers understand, their clients understand, their vendors understand, their employees understand, and they will get there faster. And I offer a very simple tool on the website, and I appreciate you letting me promote anything I want. And here's the good news: anything I'm going to talk about, it's all free. So I've got nothing to sell. Ultimately, I hope your audience buys a copy of the book, but there's a free assessment on the website. There's the first 30 pages of the book that's free. And this tool, My Vision Clarifier, is free. So if they go to e-leap.com, they can access all these tools that we're going to talk about. And so that tool helps them clarify their vision. Number 2 is to decide if you're a partner person. And so this is so important because every single one of these disciplines I'm sharing stems from a mistake that most of our clients make when they come to us as EOS. And so there are people walking the earth. You're one of 3 types of people. You're either someone who should have a partner, you're someone that shouldn't have a partner, and the person that should have a partner, you break into 2 categories. Either you need to be the majority partner making the decisions and you're giving people a piece of the action so they have skin in the game, or you're comfortable sharing in that partnership. Either you have another partner where you each own 50%, or there's 3 of you that own a third where you're comfortable being equals, for lack of a better term. And it's so important to decide on the front end because so many people start out with a partner and have to unravel something 8 years in that's a disaster. And there's no bad answer, but everyone is different, and you're one of those 3 people. Number 3 is...
I just want to say, as a private equity investor, we spend a lot of time on this, and are people willing to have a partner? And I just had to untangle a 5-year relationship with a company. We spent a lot of time, effort, energy, money developing this entrepreneurial leader. And at the end of the day, he just didn't want partners. And he made these famous words. He said, "I would rather go bankrupt than have a partner."
Yeah.
And I said, well, that would have been great if you told us that at the beginning after we quizzed you for 2 or 3 years. So anyway.
Yeah, I've had to help 7 of my clients unravel partnerships, and it's really, really challenging. So that's why that one is there. Next, number 3 is to know that the bigger the problem you solve in the world, the more successful you will be. And so it's just a basic premise that if you're cutting lawns, you're worth $25 a cut. But if you're putting people on Mars, you're worth $1 trillion. It's simple math. And so just know that as an entrepreneur, look at the problem you're solving in the world. And if you're frustrated because you're only making $100 grand a year from your business, you're probably not solving a big enough problem. Number 4 is get feedback from customers and clients early and often. So I always like to say, you need to know your customers and clients better than they know themselves. And so if you constantly keep asking, keep your ear to the ground, it's going to help you evolve your organization, evolve your product, evolve your service, because it's constantly changing. The idea, the thing you create, the product, the service that you launch with is going to change and evolve. And if you don't keep your ear to the ground, you're going to get stepped on, passed over. Competition's going to crush you. On to number 5. Know that your first plan will not be your final plan. And so all this is, again, it's a discipline. It's going in knowing that the plan is going to change, and just be ready for a change. I always urge you to have a backup plan, but just go in mentally knowing that this plan, this vision, this idea, this thing I put on paper, this thing I launched with, it's going to change somewhere between today and 10 years from now. And so just be ready. Don't be surprised. It amazes me how many entrepreneurs are surprised and they're just slow to react. And obviously they go down. Most businesses don't succeed, as we all know. Number 6 is work hard, really hard. So there's been no formula to replace working hard. And working hard, you and I could do a 1-hour podcast just on working hard, because it doesn't mean you have to work 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 a year. But what it does mean is you have to be totally engaged, always thinking about it, energy around it. So just work hard, be totally engaged. Anyway, I'll leave it there. We can dig into anything you want to. Number 7 is take criticism and doubt from others with a grain of salt. And so what this means is go in knowing you're going to get lots of opinions. And most of those opinions are going to be bad, or worst case, not bad, but not right for you. And so you've got to know your vision. You've got to know your core values. You've got to know your culture. You've got to know your customer. You've got to know your product. You've got to know what you want to create. And then all of the criticism and insight and feedback you get from people, you run it through a filter and decide what works best for your organization, because your significant other, your parent, your family, your friends, whatever it is, most of the times they're going to doubt and criticize and be afraid for you, and that can get you twisted in a knot. And then number 8 is see it every night. And it's this powerful discipline that just says, see your 10-year goal every single night when you go to bed. There's a power to the universe that when you put it out there that strongly, it happens. And so I go into each one of those things in a little more depth in the book, certainly, but there they are at a high level.
All right, the one that I want to dig in most is something that we spend a lot of time in the Business Finishing School program with, and that is the problem that you're solving. And we've come up with this a term that we've actually trademarked called a catalyzing statement.
Love it.
And a catalyzing statement is something that catalyzes action in all your stakeholders. So if you think about John F. Kennedy said, we're going to send a man to the moon and return him safe to the earth by the end of the decade of the 60s.
You're here.
It was so clear and so powerful, and the problem was so big that even though he died 8 months later, it still happened.
Yep.
So, from the number 3 is without question, in my opinion, the most impactful one, because it ties into number 1, the vision. But how do you get people to have the confidence to solve a big problem?
Well, so this is where, again, we're not going to get into the debate, but there's a spectrum I talk about in the book, the entrepreneurial range. And I talk about self-employed people, one person show, self-employed, all the way to a true entrepreneur. And so if you picture that spectrum, same thing applies to the question you're asking. Not every entrepreneur is going to put or populate Mars, you know what I mean, is going to create the next iPhone. And so we got to be careful in that not everyone needs to change the world with their idea. So, It's like one of my clients that has built an amazing $20 million company. They simplify printing environments. I mean, that's what they're passionate about. So you have to be careful to impart too much will. For me right now with this new project, it's to give entrepreneurs in the making a huge jumpstart on taking their entrepreneurial leaps. And so with that, how do you get them to get the confidence? I don't know that you can teach someone to get the confidence, but you certainly create an opening that sucks them in my opinion. If they have those 6 essential traits, they're going to get sucked in. And that visionary trait that they have is going to help them see something in the world, see a dent they want to put in the universe. And again, it just doesn't have to be, like I said, the next iPhone populating Mars. Whatever it is for that visionary, that entrepreneur, it's all that matters. As long as it's important to them and energizing to them, then, using your terminology, to me, that's a catalyzing statement. And then in the EOS, we don't call it a catalyzing statement, but we have every client make sure they have a 10-year target and a deep clarity around the passion for why they're doing what they're doing. And I think in that is that catalyzing statement that you're talking about. And we just create an opening. We just simply ask the question and they fill that void with the right answer for their organization. And some of them are, these wonderful wow statements that everybody says wow, and some of them aren't, but it energizes the company, and that's all that really matters.
So Gino, I'm hearing you, and one of the things that frustrates me the most, having taught entrepreneurs in entrepreneurial programs for 30 years, how do you challenge somebody who has the traits but who has not yet made the leap?
Yeah, and so I feel, that's a loaded question, quite frankly, because what I want to say is read the book. In other words, that's why this book was written. That's why this content was created. Or worst case, go to the website, go there for free. But, if I dig into the root of what you're asking, I think that for me, when we talk about the glimpse part of the book, and I talk about all of the options for an entrepreneur, and I talk about industries and businesses and sizes, I just feel that the entrepreneur that decides to start a heating and cooling company and generates $3 million a year and a 20% profit, that's admirable. That's an entrepreneur. And just as quickly, the other entrepreneur that starts a software company and builds $1 billion company, that's admirable. Those are both entrepreneurs. So I wouldn't want to say one is better than the other. Every entrepreneur is built for something different. And so for me, it's about taking that person with the 6 essential traits and helping them get really clear on what they're built for, and then taking that leap around what they're built for. Because I think if every entrepreneur starts out saying that, I've got to build $1 billion company, I've got to put a dent in the universe, we can all do that, I just feel like that's dangerous, because I don't believe that to be true.
That's a good insight. So I guess the question, what I'm left with is, there are a lot of people, in my opinion, that I've met and you've met, I'm sure, that they're operating way below their capacity for whatever reason. And I think a lot of it boils down to moms and dads and teachers and preachers telling them that they can't. And I think part of the leap for what I'm hearing you say is that they can. If you've got these 6 traits, you should find where you sit in that range and go for it in that range. So the question is how, and I'm thinking this live as I'm talking to you, not prepared for the question, but how do you get people to think actually at their level if they're not there? And how do you know?
Yeah, it's such a great question, because, then you make me think of my EOS clients, where they come to me and their thinking is at a certain stage, and certainly their mind gets expanded and they, grow to another level because their mind is expanded. But just as quickly, I can give you a client example of where they got so clear and their mind was expanded that they realized that they should shrink the company and actually make it, better, stronger, easier, faster, higher quality clients, higher quality product. So again, the answer is different for everyone. And so I think that, every year that goes by, you get clearer and smarter. And then I want to use me as an example. I sold EOS Worldwide 2 years ago because it got to a point where we had about 200 EOS implementers all over the world. We had international growth objectives and initiatives. We had IP issues, and it got to a size that it's just not fun to me anymore because I want to create and build and launch and start things. And so for me, I know the kind of entrepreneur I am, and I'm the kind of guy that's in this 50 to 250 employee range, and that's it. And that organization, knock on wood, for the last 2 years has grown 40% a year in my absence and should continue to do the same. So that organization, I built it to last for 100 years, but it doesn't need me at the helm anymore. I know what's fun to me. And I don't think there's anything that's written that said I should have stayed at the helm and that makes me a great entrepreneur. And so now I'm building this next thing. And so I'm playing in my sweet spot as an entrepreneur because I love to create, launch, build things, and then get the heck out when they start to get a little too structured and bureaucratic for me. So I don't know if that lends any insight to the question you're asking.
No, it does. It does. So let's go to the next question. So when you think about what you're building now,
yeah,
give us your 10-year vision. You trying to touch on as many of the 8 disciplines as you can for the Entrepreneurial Leap.
Yeah, I love it. So it's going to be a very unique business model because this is as much a passion project as it is a for-profit project. And so for me, it's a pure book play. And with that, the goal is to impact 1 million entrepreneurs in the making in the next 10 years, sell 1 million copies of this book, and I'm doing it through collaborators. And so what makes the model unique is this is a total open source, abundance-based model where I'm making this content free to any collaborator that is out there helping entrepreneurs in the making. And so it's working with organizations, working with any high school, college, nonprofit, for-profit, that are teaching and educating entrepreneurs in the making that need content. And I literally give them all of this content and these tools for free. I just ask that they give credit where credit is due and make them aware of the book. And hopefully that will move books. But the idea, if you can play that out in your mind, is all of a sudden that's the leverage point, is these collaborators are the heroes to their audience and they've got great content in addition to the content that I'm giving them. And so what's normally happening is I would be doing a license agreement with these collaborators. I'd be taking a percentage of their revenue. I'd build another $100 million business, but I don't need that. I don't want that. I'm actually trying to keep my organization small and manageable and making these collaborators heroes. And so just like with EOS, it's a very unique model that I built there. The way my brain works is just kind of different than the way most people work. And so it's kind of hard to get your head around this particular model. But to me, I don't need the economic win that I had with EOS Worldwide. I'm a capitalist. I expect an economic win from this new project. But to me, it's more about impacting those million entrepreneurs in the making and creating that leverage through collaborators than it is about building some 100-person organization that does, you know, whatever number of millions of dollars. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the goal. That's the mission. That's the business model. And I'm 4 months into it as we sit here today. So I'm executing a very specific plan for the next 10 years. Vision is crystal clear. I know I'm not a partner person, so I have no partners. I believe I'm solving a huge problem in the world because collaborators need content. I am constantly getting feedback from my collaborators and my entrepreneurs in the making. I know that my plan is going to change in the next 1 to 3 years, so I'm ready to change it on a dime. I work my ass off when I'm working. I'm going through all the disciplines, by the way. I take criticism and doubt from others with a grain of salt, and trust me, I get criticism and doubt every day of my life, and I see it every night as crystal clear as a picture I could be looking at right now.
It was funny, as you were talking, I was checking off each of the 8. So you've got you've got them done. Well, you just demonstrated what we should all do. All of you listening out there should have all of these 8 disciplines, if not memorized, re-listen to it and see where you fit in each one of these 8. Because I would agree, our operating principles here in Business Finishing School are simplicity, probability, and leverage. And I would say if you incorporate all 8 of Gino's disciplines here, you would have more simplicity, more probability of hitting the stated objective 10 years out, and you would leverage yourself.
Sure.
So with that, I would want to ask you, Gino, anything you want to say to our audience, anything you left out, any additional resources, or is it all at www.e-leap.com?
Yeah, it's all there. And what I would urge is, I keep saying free. It truly is free. So go to the website, sign up for the blog. I put out a piece of video content every single week. They're short little nuggets that are just these great little entrepreneurial nuggets to keep you motivated, educated, inspired. I write a blog every 2 weeks. And so I would urge you to do that. Please read the first 30 pages of the book for free. Please take the assessment to make sure you're an entrepreneur in the making. And again, it's all there at that website.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to say earlier, and this may be the debate for another podcast, but I have 4 young kids. I'm 56, but I've got a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 12-year-old. And I've told them, I've said to them, listen, I'm not paying for college. Nobody paid for my college. So you've got to be entrepreneurial and figure it out. You're telling me that they may not be entrepreneurs. So I got a problem.
Well, I don't know if they are or aren't, but there's a great assessment they could take at e-leap.com and a book for them to read to decide. But this is the beauty of having differing philosophies and opinions. The world needs to listen to our debate and just decide for themselves what makes the most sense. Because, I write that chapter, college or not, very controversial as to, whether you should go to college or not if you're an entrepreneur. So, there's lots of hot debates in this subject.
Well, I just want to say thank you for taking to heart the 8 disciplines, and thank you for working hard to bring your vision into the world. It's impacted hundreds of thousands of people, I would say. I know you say 100,000, but they all have families and friends and coworkers and all that. So sure. Thank you for everything you do, Gino. I appreciate your time, and our community will appreciate this as well.
Thank you, Rick. What a blast. Pleasure to spend time with you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business Finishing School podcast, where we teach you business growth simplified. For more information on Business Finishing School or their Business Growth Summit event, visit businessfinishingschool.com.